Some sad news today as it's been reported that former WWE superstar Virgil has sadly passed away at the age of 61 years old, weeks after it was widely reported that he had suffered several strokes. A company spokesperson has confirmed to the Daily Mail, as well as other outlets such as PW Insider, Fightful and more reporting the sad news this afternoon. Virgil, whose real name was Michael Jones, is perhaps best remembered for his time in World Wrestling Entertainment during the 1980s and 1990s. According to referee Mark Charles III, who broke the news of his sad passing, Virgil passed away on Wednesday peacefully in hospital. In 2022, the former WWE and WCW star was diagnosed with dementia and suffered 2 strokes. He began with the company, of course, as the villainous Bodyguard, one of the company's supreme top heels, that being WWE Hall of Famer, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. However, in 1991, he sensationally turned on his on-screen boss and became a top babyface, defeating Ted DiBiase at that year's WrestleMania and SummerSlam pay-per-views, also going on to hold the $1 Million Championship in WWE. Unfortunately for Virgil, he really failed to capitalize on that success and spent the rest of his time in WWE as more of an enhancement talent before jumping, like many of his colleagues, to World Championship Wrestling in the mid to late 1990s. Virgil then became Vincent, a nod to WWE owner Vince McMahon. Of course, it has been widely speculated that his name, Virgil, was in reference to Virgil Runnels, that being the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, the head booker of WCW at the time. Therefore, when he went to WCW, instead of being Virgil, he became Vincent, a nod to WWE owner Vince McMahon. He joined the heel New World Order faction, led by fellow former WWE stars Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. Virgil remained with the company until 2000, when injuries forced his retirement from the ring. Since then, he had become a staple on the wrestling exhibition show circuit and also on the independent scene as well. However, in more recent years, Virgil had fell on hard times. In late 2023, he was forced to set up a GoFundMe page to help pay for his medical care. Those who donated more than $25 would receive a signed photo. According to that page, Virgil was weighing around 154 pounds, nearly 100 pounds less than he weighed during his wrestling prime. The page also said that he now had limited use of his arms and hand. Quote, "The dementia is also taking more of a toll," the page also added. Now, as I mentioned, when it came to his run in WWE, he debuted in the summer of 1987, to be specific, as Virgil, the bodyguard of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Virgil carried DiBiase's money that he liked to flaunt and was one who got beaten up most of the time, whilst DiBiase escaped from the ring. He also would be participating in the challenges that DiBiase would set for people in attendance to come and do a horrible task or some kind of game, whether it was bounce a basketball or kiss someone's feet for money. Virgil would often give the money to the person who came out of the crowd. Now, Virgil played a significant secondary role in WWE main event storylines, really, throughout 1998, including some of the biggest moments in WWE history, right, when it came to assisting Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant during the infamous televised main event special on NBC, where Hulk Hogan lost the WWE World Heavyweight Championship after nearly 5 years as the champion, because of course, the shenanigans, the double referee, all that kind of stuff. Now, Hogan lost the World Heavyweight Championship, as mentioned, after nearly 5 years as champion, and at the ensuing WrestleMania 4 tournament and the main event of the inaugural SummerSlam, he was also involved in that as well. In SummerSlam 1988, Virgil was in the corner of Andre the Giant and Ted DiBiase as the Mega Bucks against Hulk Hogan, and then WWE champion, the Macho Man Randy Savage, and Miss Elizabeth as the Mega Powers. And throughout 1989 and 1991, Virgil would also occasionally wrestle against DiBiase's rivals as a kind of gatekeeper-like figure, whereby they would beat him, they could go on to then face DiBiase. For example, if they could defeat Virgil, they'd be granted a match against the $1 Million Man. Now, Virgil, the famous storyline was that he was getting increasingly humiliated by DiBiase, and eventually he turned on him, hitting him with his own $1 Million title bout at the Royal Rumble in January of 1991. Making him a babyface. After befriending and training with Rowdy Roddy Piper, he defeated DiBiase by countout at WrestleMania 7 and pinned him for Ted DiBiase's unsanctioned $1 Million Championship at SummerSlam later that year. He lost the $1 Million Championship back to DiBiase in November of 1991 as a result of outside interference by the Repo Man. At Survivor Series that year, Virgil was on Roddy Piper's team with Bret Hart and the British Bulldog, losing against Ric Flair, Ted DiBiase, the Warlord, and the Mountie. Virgil was disqualified with Hart and Piper after being counted out of the ring during a brawl with DiBiase and the Mountie at the end of the match, losing to Ric Flair, who was still in the ring. It then culminated in a match at this Tuesday in Texas, where Repo Man and DiBiase defeated Virgil and Tito Santana. As I mentioned after that, he was largely in a variety of different feuds as well. Virgil then eventually left WWE in August of 1994. Virgil did return actually briefly to the WWE in May and June of 1995 for some house show matches, but eventually he then showed up in WCW in 1996, appearing as Vincent. He was the 5th member of the original NWO alongside, you guessed it, Ted DiBiase. He was given the role of head of security for the NWO. Vincent, like his role with Virgil in the WWF, would often again take the brunt of the beatings from WCW wrestlers as other NWO members scurried away. He found some minor success when arriving first in WCW. He had a short stint of undefeated matches on WCW Saturday Night. He often also valeted for NWO members, most notably alongside Ted DiBiase for Hollywood Hogan's WCW World Heavyweight Championship matches. After DiBiase quit the NWO, Vincent began accompanying the likes of Scott Norton, Scott Steiner, Conan, and Bryan Adams to the ring as well. When it came to wrestling, he wrestled again occasionally. In 1998, in the NWO split, Vincent remained loyal to the original Black and White faction led by Hollywood Hulk Hogan, which is now being called NWO Hollywood. He assisted the faction in their feuds with the NWO Wolfpack and the Ultimate Warriors OWN, the One Warrior Nation stable as well. He frequently was tag teaming with new NWO Hollywood recruit Stevie Ray and accompanied him to the ring for most of his matches as well. Now, of course, after Starrcade 1998, the NWO Hollywood and Wolfpack factions reunited and formed two squads, Wolfpack or NWO Red and Black, also known as NWO Elite, and Vincent was demoted to be part of the NWO Black and White, known as the NWO B Team, with the Giant, Bryan Adams, Curt Hennig, Horace Hogan, Scott Norton, and Stevie Ray. The NWO B Team members began competing over who would be the leader of the squad as well, and that kind of continued on until eventually, after the NWO dissolved in October 1999, Jones changed his name to Curly Bill and joined the West Texas Rednecks with Curt Hennig, Barry Windham, Kendall Windham, and Bobby Duncan Jr. Vince Russo started the Powers That Be storyline and in December 1999 changed Jones' name to Shane and made him a bodyguard character once again for himself and the Harris brothers. Now, in mid-2000, Jones became Mr. Jones, the manager of Ernest the Cat Miller, but was soon replaced by a valet named Miss Jones. This was Jones' final character in WCW, and he wrestled under his real name, Mike Jones, before departing WCW in late 2000 and retiring from professional wrestling. Now, as I mentioned, he retired. He then occasionally, quite famously actually, appeared on the independent scene and at conventions and became a bit of a social media meme, for lack of a better term. But then surprisingly, in 2010, he returned to WWE. On the May 17, 2010 episode of Raw, from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Jones returned to WWE, reprising his Virgil Bodyguard character, this time with a DiBiase, but not Ted DiBiase Sr., but Ted DiBiase Jr. He carried out all of his old actions, such as holding the ropes open for DiBiase and bringing him a microphone when asked. On the June 14 episode of Raw, Virgil and DiBiase were in a tag team match against The Big Show and Raw guest host Mark Feuerstein. After Virgil got pinned and lost the match, DiBiase stuffed a $100 bill in Virgil's mouth and then walked out on him. The following week, DiBiase first apologized to Virgil, but then fired him and replaced him with Maurice. Then he carried on doing most of his stuff on the independent scene. But in the early days of AEW as well, we saw Virgil show up. From 2019 to 2020, Jones, under his old ring name of Soul Train Jones, began making recurring appearances for AEW as an ally of Chris Jericho and the Inner Circle. In fact, on the November 6, 2019 episode of Dynamite, he appeared in a video package that mocked an earlier promo from Cody Rhodes, who Jericho was feuding with at the time. The promo saw Jones compare Jericho's talents to Olive Garden breadsticks as unlimited and actually received critical praise from fans all over social media. It was a big hit. On the November 27 episode of Dynamite, Jones started off the show by introducing Chris Jericho for Chris Jericho's Thanksgiving thank you celebration for Le Champion, which was ultimately interrupted by SoCal Uncensored. On the April 29, 2020 episode of Dynamite, Jones made a cameo during the Inner Circle's Bubbly Bunch segment, appearing in the Manitoba Melee as well. So certainly he was active. And again, Virgil, for someone that was a peripheral figure in lots of storylines. He certainly was incredibly famous, incredibly well regarded, and had a great sense of humor and was such a incredible personality, certainly. So, Virgil, you will be sadly missed. Rest in peace.